The phone call came at 2 a.m. A dealer in Louisiana. Voice breaking, "I'll take anything. 40 cents on the dollar. Just get these engines out of here before the bank shows up Monday." This is happening everywhere. Right now, Milwaukee, Miami, Seattle. Dealers who built empires over decades are watching those empires drown in aluminum and fiberglass. 700 horsepower engines that once had customers fighting over them now sit unwanted, unloved. Each one a $70,000 anchor dragging businesses under. One dealer in Texas hasn't sold a single V12 in 8 months. His floor planning interest? $2,800 per engine per month. Do the math. It's catastrophic. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The manufacturers keep shipping more, trucks rolling up to dealerships already choking on inventory. Drivers are confused why nobody wants to sign. The marine industry just hit an iceberg, and the water's rushing in faster than anyone imagined. In the spring of 2021, something extraordinary was happening in the marine industry. After decades of steady, predictable growth, the market exploded. Boat sales hit 415,000 units that year, the highest number since the financial crisis. Marinas couldn't build slips fast enough. Fuel docks had 3-hour wait times, and at the center of this boom stood the outboard engine manufacturers, watching their wildest dreams materialize. Mercury Marine's Fond du Lac facility in Wisconsin ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They added 500 employees in 6 months. Their crown jewel, the V12 Verado, had just launched. 600 horsepower of engineering excellence with a steerable gear case that defied everything traditional boaters thought possible. The base price started at $77,000 for a single engine, and people were buying them in pairs, triples, even quads for center consoles that cost more than suburban homes. Yamaha wasn't far behind. Their XTO offshore series, a 425 horsepower giant, commanded $52,000 and had dealers taking deposits without delivery dates. Suzuki's revolutionary dual-prop DF350A was back-ordered for 18 months. Even smaller manufacturers like Tohatsu and Honda were selling everything they could produce. A dealer in Fort Myers, Florida, would later describe those days with almost religious reverence. Customers would walk in with cashier's checks for engines they'd never seen, boats they hadn't even ordered yet. We had one guy buy 4 Mercury 450Rs, that's $200,000 in outboards, for a boat that wouldn't be built for 2 years. Nobody questioned it. The assumption was prices would only go higher. The numbers backed up the euphoria. Marine financing was available at 2.5%. Home equity had skyrocketed, giving buyers easy access to capital. The average boat owner's age was dropping for the first time in decades. Young families who discovered boating during lockdowns were upgrading from rental pontoons to serious offshore machines. Instagram was flooded with sunset photos from anchor spots that used to be empty. By late 2022, Mercury, Yamaha, and Suzuki had all announced production expansions. The wave seemed endless. The first warning sign appeared in a place nobody was watching: the Federal Reserve Conference Room. In March 2022, interest rates began their climb. By July 2023, they'd reached 5.5%, the highest in 22 years. For marine dealers operating on floor plan financing, this wasn't just a number on a spreadsheet. It was a death sentence written in slow motion. Consider the mathematics of disaster. A dealer holding 10 V12 Verados on the floor plan was suddenly paying $2,800 per month per engine in interest alone. That's $28,000 monthly, just to keep inventory that 6 months earlier would have cost them $5,000. The profit margin on a $77,000 engine? About $11,000. The math stopped working, but interest rates were only the first domino. The supply chain, which had strangled the industry in 2021, suddenly reversed. Container ships that had been delayed for 2 years all arrived at once. Mercury's Wisconsin warehouse overflowed with lower units. Yamaha had so many XTO powerheads in Jacksonville, they rented auxiliary storage facilities. The industry had prepared for a shortage that no longer existed. Then came the technology resistance. Mercury's revolutionary steerable gear case, engineering marvel though it was, terrified traditional mechanics. Forum posts multiplied. "My guy won't touch the new V12. Dealer wants $15,000 for diagnostic equipment. Nobody local can service this thing." Yamaha's electric steering, designed to eliminate hydraulic failures, created new anxieties. Buyers who'd waited 18 months for these engines started canceling orders. A service manager in Charleston would later explain the perfect storm. "We had engines nobody could afford to finance, that mechanics couldn't service, arriving in quantities nobody needed, and the corporation kept shipping more." The Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show in October 2023 became the industry's moment of reckoning. For the first time since 2019, engines remained unsold when the exhibition halls emptied. Dealers stood among their gleaming displays, processing a reality they'd never imagined. The music had stopped, and they were the ones without chairs. By January 2024, denial was no longer possible. The numbers painted a portrait of an industry in freefall. Dealers nationwide were holding 18 months of inventory, triple the healthy average. Mercury dealers alone had 2,100 V12 Verados sitting unsold. Yamaha's dealer network struggled under 3,500 XTO units, aging past their model year. Even conservative Suzuki offered rebates for the first time in company history. Tom Richardson had owned Coastal Marine in Corpus Christi for 35 years. 3 generations of Texas fishermen had bought their first boats from his showroom. By spring 2024, he had at $1.2 million in engines he couldn't move. The bank called daily. His floor plan interest exceeded his total sales revenue. "I've survived hurricanes, oil crashes, and recessions," he said. "But this is different. This is watching everything you built dissolve in slow motion." The desperation manifested in increasingly surreal promotions. A dealer group in Alabama offered "buy 2, get 1 free" on triple-engine installations. Marina dealers pushed 84-month financing at 9.9% APR, knowing buyers would pay nearly double the engine's value over 7 years. In Louisiana, dealers started selling to each other at 40% losses, just to free up credit lines for survival. Sarah Chen managed service operations for 3 Pacific Northwest dealerships. She watched the human carnage unfold daily. Customers who'd bought V12s in 2023 were trading them in 0 hours for 60 cents on the dollar. These are people taking $30,000 hits just to escape. One guy told me his wife threatened divorce if he didn't get rid of the monthly payments. The symbolic bottom came in December 2024. A prominent New Orleans dealer, facing foreclosure, converted his showroom into an event space. Wedding receptions, corporate parties, quinceañeras. The engines remained on display, pushed against the walls like expensive wallpaper. Couples exchanged vows next to $800,000 of maritime machinery that nobody wanted. Mercury Marine reportedly initiated a quiet buyback program, though officials wouldn't confirm it. The industry held its breath, waiting for someone, anyone, to stop the bleeding. Understanding the collapse requires examining forces beyond simple supply and demand. Dr. Michael Torres, who's analyzed marine industry cycles for 3 decades, called it a perfect storm of overconfidence meeting mathematical reality. The truth was more complex and more damning. First, the borrowed boom. 70% of buyers during the 2021-2022 surge used home equity loans or credit lines secured against inflated property values. When housing prices stabilized and rates spiked, those credit sources evaporated. Worse, many buyers found themselves underwater on both their homes and their boats. The wealth effect that drove purchases reversed into a poverty psychology that stopped them cold. The complexity tax proved equally devastating. These weren't your grandfather's outboards. A Mercury V12 Verado required proprietary diagnostic software costing $15,000. Routine maintenance involved procedures that local mechanics couldn't perform. Yamaha's integrated digital systems meant a failed sensor could disable the entire engine until a certified technician arrived. Buyers discovered they'd purchased not just engines, but lifetime dependencies on dealer networks that might not survive. Insurance delivered another blow. Marine insurance premiums jumped 40% after consecutive hurricane seasons. Carriers started requiring haul-out provisions and limiting coverage on high-horsepower installations. A boat with quad 450s that cost $2,000 monthly to insure in 2021 now demanded $3,500. The total cost of ownership had quietly doubled while nobody was watching. Then came the fuel reality check. A V12 Verado burns 50 gallons per hour at cruise. With marine fuel averaging $5 per gallon, a Saturday fishing trip could cost $1,500 in fuel alone. The same social media that glorified boat life now showcased fuel dock receipts that went viral for all the wrong reasons. A leaked Brunswick Corporation memo revealed the corporate blindness. We built engines for a market that no longer exists. They'd assumed remote work was permanent, that cheap money would flow forever, that complexity equaled value. They'd forgotten that boating, at its core, is about simplicity and freedom. The engine's choking dealer inventories represented the opposite: complexity and burden. As we enter 2025, the immediate future reads like a buyer's paradise and a dealer's nightmare. Industry analysts predict 40 to 50% discounts by March. Smaller dealerships are already consolidating or closing. 3 major dealer groups have declared bankruptcy since January 1st. Mercury, Yamaha, and Suzuki have all announced 30% production cuts for 2025, but it's too late to prevent the inventory apocalypse already underway. Yet within this catastrophe, opportunities emerge. Smart buyers are acquiring dream engines at 2015 prices. Charter companies are upgrading entire fleets for half the previous cost. International buyers from Brazil, Australia, and the Middle East are flooding the American market, taking advantage of currency advantages and desperate pricing. One Bahamas-based charter operator bought 20 XTO Yamahas for what 6 would have cost in 2022. The manufacturers are scrambling to adjust. Mercury announced a simplified V8 line for 2026. Less technology, more reliability, lower price points. Yamaha's partnering with Toyota Marine to develop hybrid electric systems that promise 500-mile range with 50% fuel savings. Suzuki's going back to what they call bulletproof basics. Simple, reliable engines that any mechanic can service with hand tools. But the real change runs deeper than product specifications. The marine industry is confronting a generational shift in values. Younger buyers don't dream of owning boats. They dream of accessing them. Boat clubs and fractional ownership programs are exploding while traditional ownership collapses. The $100,000 engine package makes no sense when you can join a club for $5,000 annually. As warehouse lights dim over thousands of unsold engines tonight, we're witnessing more than a market correction. We're seeing the end of an era where manufacturers could dictate terms, where complexity equaled progress, where horsepower was the only metric that mattered. These engines aren't failures of engineering. They're monuments to an industry that mistook temporary abundance for permanent change. The ocean doesn't care about quarterly projections. The fish don't know there's a recession. And somewhere tonight, in a small coastal town, someone's perfectly maintained 2008 Yamaha 150 is purring like it did 15 years ago, ready for tomorrow's sunrise trip. Sometimes, the best technology is the one that just works.